are now listening to the Rapport Podcast Network.
Well, Sooner Nation, it is official. Seth Littrell now fired. We don't have an offensive coordinator. We have 3 losses on the season with, how many games left? We've got Ole Miss, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU. Of course, Maine thrown in there as well. We've got those 5 games left on the season. And we just fired our offensive coordinator midseason. This is a little bit unprecedented for Oklahoma, unprecedented for Brent Venables. We're going to talk about it right here on the Sooner Spotlight. Welcome in, Sooner Nation. Very excited to have you all here. This is a very last-minute, hey, let's get on here and talk live. I apologize for being absent for the last week. It's a mixture of sickness, traveling, all kinds of things. I got pretty sick off of a sinus infection that just really kind of knocked me back. Then it was super windy out one day and super chapped lips. It's not easy to talk on a sports show when you've got extremely chapped lips that were just the worst I've ever had. Anyways, no excuses. We're back here now, and I was literally just sitting down and planning out the next week of getting back on track with some more content because I felt very terrible that we didn't have things going this past week, and we had some big news dropped. Seth Littrell fired. This is what we wanted, right? This is what we wanted. Maybe not how we wanted it to happen. I mean, honestly, I don't think anyone wanted Seth Littrell fired. I think we wanted Seth Littrell to work out. Personally, that was what I was hoping. I was hoping that eventually he would find out what was the issue and be able to work on it and improve. And that's some things that he kept on saying week in, week out with his press conferences. No matter how many times he was questioned about specific things, Seth Littrell was not really answering them with results, right? So, it was a frustrating situation to say the least with Seth Littrell there at offensive coordinator. And again, I think I was scrolling through trying to find some reactions, some quick reactions from Sooner fans. And yes, we're happy that it happened because I think we know that it needed to happen, but maybe not necessarily with where we're at in the season because it kind of happened maybe a little too late where I don't know what good can come from it now, right? And then on top of that, we'll get into who's going to take over and what our options are going forward. And it's just not good for this season, right? And, and I think most Oklahoma fans, for sure, the reasonable, rational Oklahoma fans that are out here just looking at the situation, we're all devastated knowing that one of our coaches who was a former player, a man that does love this university, a man that wanted it to work for this university, and I do think he put in a lot of hard work. It just wasn't going to work in this league. It wasn't going to work for this team, and that was just something that was lacking. It's something that I feel like does need to happen. It was something that I do think we needed to move on. I don't know if I like doing it mid-season, especially like I said, with everything going on. I'm not really sure what good it does now, but I think overall the reaction, I want to know what your guys' reaction is. What do you guys think of the Seth Littrell firing? How do you feel about it? What's your just gut reaction to it? Because it just happened. It literally just got announced. Like I said, I wasn't going to hop on live at all today. I was just going to try to plan and see what we can do about going on throughout the week and maybe bring this up because it's something that needs to be discussed. But I said, you know what? No, we need to talk about this live. I want to hear your guys' reactions live. So jump in the live chat down below. First and foremost, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you're watching after this is done being live, you can comment. If you're watching while it's live, you can comment in the live chat. We're going to get to your guys' thoughts and comments about this. But first off, Seth Littrell fired. Who's taking over? We've got Joe John Finley. So JJF is what you'll see a lot on social media. If you see that, that's Joe John Finley, tight ends coach and co-offensive coordinator this past season. He's going to be taking over for the play calling duties. We'll also have Kevin Johns helping out with the quarterbacks, who was an analyst for us this season. He was also known for doing a pretty good job over at Duke. It's not a great situation to be in, right? And this is why I was not really supportive of firing a coach midseason, specifically when we still had things to look forward to. I think at this point, it feels like, hey, we really don't have much to look forward to anymore. We're sitting here with 3 losses. Even if we were to end the season and turn things around and end the season at 9-3, we're not looking good. 9-3 is not really going to get you an SEC championship. 9-3 is not going to get you to the playoffs, most likely. It could, but I mean that's a very unlikely situation. That's kind of a reaching for something situation. So I think doing this earlier when everyone was calling for it right away, though I understand the outrage and keeping a guy around that's just not working, I don't think it was the smart move to do earlier in the season. I think this was a really good timing to do it because we're at that point where, hey, if we get rid of him and it doesn't work out at this point, it's not like there was much more that would have been done going forward into the season if we kept him. And so I do think the timing worked out well, even though it feels kind of a bittersweet moment. It's something that I think we can look forward to. I think hopefully, something that I heard discussed that was a total rumor, and so this is to be taken with a grain of salt, is that, because a lot of people upset with Joe John Finley being put in there, and I'm hearing that Seth Littrell, from what I understand, Seth Littrell had a majority call on this offense, the scheme, and everything around it, for a majority. Of course, then Brent Venables tried stepping in and coaching, doing what a head coach is supposed to do, and step in here and have his role and maybe persuading other ways. And some rumor that I've heard is that, that Joe John Finley really didn't have much to do with this. So maybe that's a good sign that, hey, Joe John Finley didn't have any play calling, but I don't think that's true to the fullest extent. I do think, we've seen them both up in the booth together, so you would think that Joe John Finley would have had a little bit of call, right? And so I don't really necessarily buy that rumor, but if that's true, maybe we have something to look forward to there, that Joe John Finley saw something that Seth Littrell said, I don't want to go with that route. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have that kind of inside information. But what I do have is let's just air it out. Let's do whatever we can going forward into the rest of the season. Like I said, I want to hear your guys' reaction to this, your gut reaction. So please drop that down in the live chat. If you would, share a link to this show on social media with one of your Oklahoma friends, somebody that you know that's also an Oklahoma fan, so we can talk about this, because I want to hear your guys' reactions. I do, because I'm not really sure how I feel about it. I do think it had to be done. I think it needed to be done. I think eventually we were going to move on from Seth Littrell. Let's pull up what we've had throughout the offense so far. According to PFF, Oklahoma is the second worst overall rated offense in all FBS. Only one worse is Kennesaw State, who is sitting at 0-6 right now. We have an overall offense grade of 54.9%. I don't know what kind of grading system you guys use. I know that there's 10-point grading systems, and I think there's another that's a 7-point grading system. I've heard of others. Regardless of what grading system you're using, I'm pretty sure a 54.9 is a failing grade. That is beyond failing. And looking at this offense, absolutely terrible. And I do like PFF quite a bit on their grading system. I think overall they do a pretty good job. So, you take a look at that. A passing offense was 55.5. That was our passing grade. That's, again, another failing grade. And then pass block, 59.4. Our offensive line has been atrocious. I think this past Saturday, though I'm not going to get too much into this game, I'll definitely talk more about this past game against South Carolina and the tough loss that was. But this past game, I think you saw that the offensive line was the biggest problem, specifically with Michael Hawkins. The offensive line was the biggest problem. And I think a lot of people are saying that Bill Bedenbaugh has to go. I don't think that's the case. I really just don't. I don't believe that because of his track record. I don't believe that. I think you've got to give some grace, recognizing that we had a very beat up and very new offensive line, and it's just not working. And then I think a lot of people are seeing, things that show up and they're trying to play freshmen. I've seen a lot of comments about play the freshmen, specifically on the offensive line. Play the freshmen. What's the worst that could happen with freshmen? Our season's over. Just throw the freshmen in there. Well, there's a problem with that because those same freshmen that you're holding back, and what good is it to throw them in there right now with meaningless reps at this point in the season? And even if they were really good and we started piecing something together and started seeing some bright spots or even giving them some playtime, I do think putting them in for some playtime might be a good idea if that's the comments being made. But a lot of the comments I'm seeing made is bench certain starters. The problem with that, with any freshman, is getting rid of a redshirt eligibility. You take away your redshirt eligibility after four games played. So that's one thing with Jackson Arnold that you have to give him incredible props for doing what he did this past Saturday, going into the game when we needed him very terribly. Michael Hawkins just did not perform well. I honestly never saw anything good from Michael Hawkins other than his ability to run the ball, not even scrambling, not even being a dual threat quarterback. I think he has had some passes that look promising, Michaal Hawkins, but he hasn't really looked comfortable with really anything. There was a couple of throws against Tennessee that I saw, or really not even from Tennessee, and a couple against Auburn, where it was a quick reaction throw, and he made the right read at the right time. But outside of those very select few throws, I did not see that much from Michaal Hawkins, even with open wide receivers, specifically in that Texas game. That was something that I wanted to go back and do a little bit of a film review of some of the things that I saw that could have gone better, and that again, just sickness and travel kind of kept me from getting into that. But there, with Michaal Hawkins, there was a lot of that, and anyways, with Michaal Hawkins, it would have been very easy for Brent Venables just to say, man, we just went down 21-0 very fast in a hurry because of Michaal Hawkins, but I can't go back. And it would have been easy for Jackson Arnold to say, hey, this is a dumpster fire. I'm not wasting my eligibility on this. I'm gonna save my eligibility and play an extra year. I can go on next year and be a sophomore basically again. That's what Jackson Arnold could have done, but instead he spent that redshirt eligibility by coming in and saving this offense, which is atrocious. Like I said, second worst offense in FBS right now. That's Oklahoma we're talking about, who just a couple of seasons ago, and really for how many seasons, has been the best offense in the nation, one of the best offenses in the nation, and I would say overall one of the best offenses probably in the last decade. So yeah, I mean it's crazy, and I think a lot of people putting the blame on Brent Venables, and although yesterday, let's see, today's Sunday, right? And my days are getting mixed up here. Yeah, yesterday with that South Carolina game, I started to say, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit towards Brent Venables, not necessarily firing Brent Venables, but I'm feeling a little bit of anger towards Brent Venables because ultimately the head coach has to see, honestly, the first pass of the game. I don't care about the other circumstances. The first pass of the game, when there's already controversy on the line, the first pass of the game is an interception that was just really could have been avoided very easily. That to me seemed like the turning point that, okay, that just went off my head. We need to put Jackson in there. Michaal Hawkins did not look comfortable at all against Texas. I think Michaal Hawkins has a higher ceiling than Jackson Arnold because of some of his physical capabilities. But right now, it's not working. It's not going to happen. And so that's just something. I mean, we've got two talented guys that just aren't good right now under this offense, and we all agree it's not the quarterback. At this point, we finally agree it's not just the quarterback, right? And early in the season, I got a lot of flack because I said, whoa, you guys are jumping on this gun of getting rid of Jackson Arnold. I agree. I think we needed to swap him out in that Tennessee game. That Tennessee game, he did not look good. We needed to swap him out in the second half, and we did. And I liked that move. I didn't ever think that it was the right move to start Michaal Hawkins. I think at that point it was like, hey, now there's no going back. So I didn't think much starting Michaal Hawkins was the right move, and that's what we did, and I didn't like it. And in that Auburn game, I didn't see enough to say, hey, I think Michaal Hawkins was the right move, going with him. I was hopeful that would be the case. but I didn't think it was during Auburn, and it obviously was not the right move for Texas. I honestly think Jackson Arnold with the game plan in Texas, specifically the second half game plan, first half game plan, first half offensive play calling was atrocious in many ways, and horrible coaching in many facets, and whoever you want to blame for that, Seth Littrell might be the one. But second half, I thought there was a better game plan that Jackson Arnold would have been able to succeed with, at least succeed much more than what Michael Hawkins was, just because Michael Hawkins was missing a lot of open passes. He was missing a lot of open receivers where he just got too flustered, and I don't completely blame the kid. I really don't. I'm not trying to bash Michael Hawkins when I say that. I'm just saying he wasn't fit for that game, and he's a young guy. He's a true freshman. So, and a lot of that, really everything on this offense all boils down to one big problem, and it was Seth Littrell. And I'm kind of going on a big rant, kind of go down a rabbit hole just to say that Oklahoma's offensive struggles have come from many different areas. We do have injuries. The wide receiver depth with injuries right now is a problem. That is part of what's happening here with this wide receiver corps being so banged up. That is 100%. That is 100% part of the problem. The offensive line is a huge part of the problem, big time part of the problem. But again, injuries. That's what started it all this season. And then trying to get these guys going, it's just not working right now. And honestly, a big part of the offensive line not working. I don't know how much Bill Bedenbaugh has with game planning and scheming with this offensive line into game time. I don't. I really don't have the answer for that. I can try to ask people who I know would have some answers, and maybe I can give a little bit more light on that. But I don't know the answer to that. And so if you guys want to fire Bill Bedenbaugh, be my guest. I just don't know how good we do in recruiting going forward if that's the case. This past season, I hope everyone can be rational about this past season going into it, this past offseason, and recognizing that we lost a lot of guys on the offensive line. And with any offensive line coach, it's going to be tough. But a big part of that does fall back on the offensive coordinator, the man lining up these plays, knowing that you have to draw up plays that are going to help your quarterback, help your running backs succeed, help your wide receivers succeed in those situations. And it's obvious that Seth Littrell was not doing that. It's obvious that Seth Littrell was not trying to get any kind of mesh patterns going that might open something up as a quick dump off. It didn't seem like he had a very good game plan for a running scheme. It just seemed like the same 3 or 4 running play calls all season long. We haven't had a whole lot of mixing it up. This is something I said earlier in the season. Go back to that Temple game, that first game of the season. I said it. My buddy Jay from Locked On Sooners, and I apologize to him because I know he's live at the same time right now, and I don't want to take the same prime time as him because he's a great guy and great commenter as well on Oklahoma sports. But anyways, him and I both said the same thing about Oklahoma and the offensive play calling in that Temple game. It just felt like very vanilla and it was a really bad overall game plan against Temple, but it worked because it was Temple, and it just felt like that's all they were trying to do. It felt like in that Temple game, we purposely said, hey, let's take it easy. Let's run the most vanilla offense we can possibly find so we don't expose any of our plays. And then again against Houston, I said, it's kind of weird that we ran the same game plan against Houston, especially when we were struggling. And then we went to Tulane, and I said, okay, there was a little bit of mixing it up there, and it felt like we got a little bit of something working, but some of that was just that we had some offensive linemen coming back and helping out again, and it started there. But then it still didn't feel like a good game plan. So what's going on here? With hindsight, I recognize that Temple game plan for the offense, that was just our game plan. That was our game plan for the season. That was our playbook being exposed. And that's pathetic. That's very pathetic. I think, I like Seth Littrell, and I really wanted him to work here at Oklahoma. I did. I liked the hire because I like bringing guys back that have a tie to Oklahoma. I liked Brent Venables coming back, and I still love Brent Venables. I love the energy that he brings. I love the fact that a guy that has those ties to Oklahoma is going to stick around and do the best that he can for Oklahoma because he knows what it's all about. He knows the tradition here. I personally like that, even though I know that's not a popular opinion. Here, as of recent, I'm finding that out. That's not a popular opinion. But it just didn't work out. Seth Littrell was not. He is not a good offensive coordinator. I don't know how much we blame on Seth Littrell, but I think the fact that he's being fired midseason from a coach who I do trust, I think that tells us quite a bit. I think that tells us that obviously it wasn't just us that thought that he was the problem. It was obvious that it's very obvious at this point now that Brent Venables and whoever else would have made this decision, helped make this decision, they also saw and said, hey, we're trying to pinpoint a specific reason why this is going so poorly and try to fix it, and that's the area that we're going to lean towards. They said Seth Littrell, whoever it was, whether it be Joe Castiglione stepped in or whoever else might have been a part of this decision, Brent Venables would have had to be a big part of it, but they looked at this situation and they said, we want to fix something. We want to change something and get this thing going right now instead of waiting. What can we change? What seems to be the biggest problem? And they pinpointed it and said, Seth, we love you. We don't want you to go, but it's not working. Whatever has been going on with your end of the bargain is not working because they didn't get rid of anyone else. Not yet. And of course, some of that might have just been that we can't afford to get rid of anyone else, and I totally understand that. But yeah, Seth Littrell fired. Seth Littrell let go now as of today. We were just informed literally within minutes ago. So, yeah, I mean, it's a bittersweet moment for Oklahoma. It really is. Let's talk about some guys on the market. I think this is worth talking about. Who do you guys want to see? I mean, who's out there on the market that you guys want to bring in as offensive coordinator? Because I think the problem with Jeff Lebby leaving at the time that he left was that Seth Littrell coming in seemed like a good hire, and that just kind of goes to show now with hindsight how poor the pool was. Right now, I think maybe that pool has opened up, and I think with a name brand like Oklahoma, we should be able to get just about anyone we want to come in to fill that role. I don't think we should have to settle when we fill that role. I think Oklahoma is a name brand worth coming to be an offensive coordinator, even for a small-time head coach at a small school coming over. So here's one that I know has been thrown out plenty, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts. And I know some of the reactions that I would get from this name being thrown out there, but Kevin Wilson, he's currently the Tulsa head coach. He has ties to Oklahoma, and I know a lot of people I've heard throw this name out there. I feel very conflicted with this name being thrown in there because Kevin Wilson, I think that he had quite a few good years with Oklahoma. I think he had quite a few years as an offensive coach for Oklahoma that, you know what, I think he did pretty well. And honestly, I think that he did have it. But since leaving Oklahoma, I know he didn't do well at Indiana. I know that he didn't do. I'm trying to think of where else he is gone. But as a head coach, he's 6-13 currently at Tulsa. And overall, as a head coach, he's currently 32-60, 32 wins, 60 losses. That's Kevin Wilson. So he does have some ties to Oklahoma. That one does seem to make sense. And that seems to be one that he's worked with Brent Venables in the past. He has ties with Brent Venables. He has ties with Oklahoma. That seems to make sense to me when we're just looking at it way too early. And I don't want them to name anyone this season. I want us just to write it out because what do we have to lose right now? We are bad. We are very bad right now, and I don't think anybody's going to come in here and magically fix this. But Kevin Wilson being a name being thrown out. And the reason why I want to name out some names is because I'd like to hear some names. Another one that was Brennan Marion. I think that's a name that obviously is going to be thrown out there. I think that seems very obvious after what he's done at UNLV as a head coach, or as an offensive coach. And he's currently the offensive coordinator over there and quarterbacks coach, which guess what? We need an offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and that's a name that's thrown out there. And you know what? I am 100% all on board with this one because Brennan Marion has done an outstanding job pretty much anywhere he's been, working with wide receivers, working with quarterbacks. So going back a little bit, back in 2016, he was a coach, a running back coach for Oklahoma Baptist. So that's one school that he was, kind of Oklahoma ties, Oklahoma State ties at least. So that's one thing to kind of throw out there. Going on, he back in 2020 with Hawaii as a wide receivers coach. Then he went to Pitt as a wide receivers coach, and then he went to Texas as kind of a really just more or less with the wide receivers. And then he got a little bit of an upgrade going to be an offensive play caller, an offensive coordinator, and a QB coach over with UNLV. So, yeah, that seems to be the best one that I see out there that we have a shot of getting. Because I know that Oklahoma can offer more than UNLV. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, but look, 2020, 21, 2020, really 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. He's been in different places. He's a one-stop shop, 1 year, and he's done. So I understand that. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing at all. And it sucks whenever that happens because you do want to build ties with a coordinator, a main coach, whether it be a main assistant such as a coordinator or your head coaches, your running back coaches. You want to keep those ties for sure, and you want to keep them for a while. And I understand that because when you're successful, you want to keep on being successful. So if he was able to come in here and be successful at Oklahoma, I'll tell you what would happen if he was successful his first year at Oklahoma with this offense, especially turning it around from what it's been this year. If he were to come in next year and start with this offense and we turn around and start to look like that Jeff Lebby or Lincoln Riley offense again, he's probably going to go off again and the very next year and get a head coaching job somewhere at a smaller school or maybe another coordinator job somewhere where it makes better sense for him. I can't blame him for that. I really can't. This is a business and this is a job. This is a career. This is something that you're going to these places to put food on the table for your family. I guess I'm not really sure. I don't know too much about him as a person, if he's got a wife and kids, anything like that. But I do know that this is a career, and you're always trying to move up the ladder, and that's what coaching is all about. And I also have faith that if we were to bring him in and be, put together a good offense for 1 year, if he were to move on the next year, that we would bring somebody else in with his caliber. I have faith in that. It's just, it doesn't always happen that way, and that's nerve-wracking. I totally understand why you wouldn't want to go with somebody like this. But looking at it, he also played a little bit as a tight end throughout his career. So that's something else that working with some tight ends wouldn't be. He's worked with wide receivers, he's worked with quarterbacks, and he's been a tight end. So I think he could work in a lot of different ways for this offense, and he's good at what he does. He really is. So that's one of the names I know. Looking at Brennan Marion and Kevin Wilson, those are the only two names that I'm looking out there. I forget the name of the Purdue coach that just got fired. I don't want him. Look at what he did with Purdue. I just no, thank you personally. But yeah, I mean, looking at the market right now, it's way too early. And like I said, I don't want us to make any decisions, but to keep our eyes out there and think, hey, what are some options? Those are a couple of options. And like I said, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that as well. But hey, let's get down to the comments section real quick and see what you guys are saying in the chat. Again, jump in the chat. We'd love to see what you've got to say. LB666 says, had to be done. If it came from above Venables' head, he is on the hot seat for sure. Yeah, you're right. I mean, if it did come from above Venables, he probably is on the hot seat. But I think Venables wanted to make a move. He just didn't know when was the right time. And I think, like I said, I think the reason for this was that if you did this when we were 4-1, 4-2, and then the offense kept on doing bad, and let's say that they turned into as bad as they were with Michael Hawkins in that first quarter, if that would have happened after we fired Seth Littrell and then we turned into 4-3, the narrative would have been turned around and saying, see, you can't fire a guy when you still got a little bit of hope left in the season. Now with 3 losses, with the schedule that we have ahead of us, with 4 or 5, I believe, see, Ole Miss, Alabama, Missouri. I don't know, is Missouri still ranked? So Ole Miss, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU. So you've got 4 ranked teams, I believe. Am I missing one in there? So with that schedule ahead, if you have any kind of hope with your season with that schedule ahead, you can't fire a guy with just 2 losses. I think at this point, 4 and 3. If we've got 4 ranked opponents, you're hopeful that you can try to pull off 2 of those, and then we're sitting. I mean, if we pull off 2 of those in Maine, we're sitting at 7 wins. That's not a good season. So that's best case scenario I see right now. Best case scenario, we have 7 wins at the end of the season. That's at this point, if that's your best case scenario, why not pull the trigger? I think that's why Brent Venables would have felt comfortable finally pulling the trigger now. I don't think it was above his head. I think he probably had discussions and said, yeah, I understand, guys, but what do you want me to do? Can you help me? I mean, can you help me make a better decision? I want to make the right one. Shrey says, Joe John Finley ain't it either. I don't disagree with you. I really don't. And I'm not expecting this offense to be better, but I am hopeful that maybe with Seth Littrell gone mid-season, that maybe guys like JJF are going to say, hey, we've got to do something, and we've got to do something drastic. Guys, we're putting together something big right now. That's all I can be hopeful for. Like I said, 7 wins is like best case scenario now, and that sucks because this defense is great. It really is. Let's jump back to the rest of these real quick, and then I want to go to the South Carolina game really quick just to talk about how great this defense is. LB666 says, we Oklahomans are loyal to a fault. Hire the OC that you think is the one and let him bring in his staff with no pressure to hold over anyone. I like that idea. I really do. Just, bring in, I mean, we've got to find the right guy to bring in, right? We've got to bring in and you're right. We are loyal. And so it's hard to get rid of guys like Bill Bedenbaugh. It's hard to get rid of guys like DeMarco Murray. It's really difficult. I do want to say one thing to everybody calling for Cale Gundy still. Just let it go. It's truly not going to happen. If that happens, I will be extremely shocked. I don't know what else I don't know what I can do for you guys if that happens, but I would be extremely shocked. Robbie Martin says, I like Seth, but it was beyond ugly. I agree with you. I liked Seth as a hire because, again, he Oklahoma ties, and I've said this in the past, that offense that he ran this season, doesn't seem like the same offense that I studied when he was back at North Texas. It really doesn't feel the same way. And so I'm not really sure what was going on with that, because maybe it was just executed poorly here at Oklahoma, but it just didn't feel like the same offense to me. It didn't look the same. It really didn't, because the offense that he ran was very similar to Jeff Lebby's, just maybe not quite as successful. It was very similar though. The layout, everything. I don't know. It didn't seem right, and it was time to go. It was time to go, and I'm glad that we moved on. It's a bittersweet moment, right? I'm right there with you guys. Sooner Cowboys says Coach Bedenbaugh needs to change up the O-line before he gets fired. Again, like I said, I don't know how much of the blame this year we can really put on Bedenbaugh. Like I said, I'm going to dig into it and ask for you guys to try to figure out, because I do know some guys that might be able to help me out with understanding exactly what role Bedenbaugh plays, at least give me a good idea when it comes to game planning. But yeah, I mean, the offensive line is atrocious. The offensive line has been the biggest problem all season long, because if you want to talk, we've talked about the running backs, and I do think a big part of it is that we're not getting a single running back any kind of momentum. Gavin Sawchuk not being used at all this year was just atrocious. That Gavin Sawchuk not being used this year was very similar to me as not using Tawi Walker last year, and now look where it's leading. Gavin Sawchuk's probably not playing another down for Oklahoma the way that it looks. It's going downhill on offense very fast. One thing that I want to keep you guys from thinking is for Brent Venables, I do think the seat gets warm with seasons like this, no doubt. I don't think he's on the hot seat. I don't think he is this year. I don't think, no matter how this season ends, I don't think he's on the hot seat, because look at what the defense did. We all cannot deny what that defense did. Let's jump to the South Carolina game, and I'm going to dive a little further and give my thoughts on this game later on. Check that out tomorrow morning, because I will have that out tomorrow. So please tune back in for that tomorrow morning. But here's what the defense did against South Carolina. They only allowed 6 for 18 on third downs. Can't be mad about that. Can't be mad about that at all. Man, that's what, 33%? Is that right? Is my math correct on that? That the defense did good there. They only allowed 256 total yards. The defense only allowed 256 total yards, and we lost 35-9. All right, the defense, out of that 256 yards, the defense only allowed 180 passing yards and 76 rushing yards. Guys, I'm telling you, the defense, it still really is really good. Excuse me. So, yeah, I mean, that's what Brent Venables gives us. That's what Brent Venables offers us, and we knew that. We knew that going into it. The defense, they were sitting there at a 75% grade on, according to PFF, and overall, I mean, you look at their run defense was a 90.8 rating on PFF, according to PFF for that South Carolina game, and their tackling was pretty good. I mean, overall, I mean, this was not a bad game at all. The pass rush was there; it was doing pretty well. The defense looked well, and I know 75 pass, or the defensive grade doesn't sound great if you're talking to normal grading system, but that's a pretty good grade for the entirety of the defense. We did get cooked a couple of places that we shouldn't have. I do think that there was some broken plays where we haven't seen a whole lot this year. And honestly, it felt to me like this defense, this whole team was demoralized. It did, and I don't blame them. After seeing what happened in that first quarter, the first 3 drives, 3 turnovers back to back to back. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk bad about Michael Hawkins. That's not at all what I'm trying to do. But after that first interception, with the controversy that we've had with quarterbacks, specifically around that Texas game, that first pass, very first pass of the game, interception, turns it over, and they're able to go and score off of that. At that moment, you have to put in Jackson Arnold. You have to say, Jackson, we need you in there. We understand that it's not a quarterback problem. Michael Hawkins, it's not all on you, okay? Don't take this to heart. This is not all on you. And this is what's so hard about this right now. We've got 2 quarterbacks that we really like. We've got 2 quarterbacks that we all know are very talented, right? And we know it's not their fault. But that's got to be the change made. I mean, it's tough, because look at what this team did after Jackson Arnold went in. It's obvious. They weren't going to. We can't say that they were going to win the game if Jackson Arnold started this game, but we definitely know for a fact it would not have been this bad. And it's tough, guys. I mean, this is a tough time to be a Sooner fan, isn't it? And just to kind of shut down the narrative, the Oklahoma Sooners are not performing this bad because welcome to the SEC. The Sooners have way more problems than the SEC right now. They have way more problems on their hands than the SEC. Jackson Arnold actually played a very good game, and I don't think you can deny that. Not great in efficiency, or maybe I'm trying to think. Yeah, I would say overall efficiency, not great, but he threw 225 yards. Finally got the touchdown pass to Brennan Thompson was beautiful. That's something that we needed, and it was a quick read. And that's something that we should have been running way more, especially when we were down that much. The fact that we weren't trying to bomb the ball out several times. There was a couple that were overthrown, and guys, don't overread those, because if you look at everything else behind that, there was one where he overthrew to Jacquez Petaway. There was a lot of dropped passes by these wide receivers too, and Jacob Jordan too. Man, we could go on and talk about this, but anyways, getting back to the offensive coaching, it had to be done. It sucks that it had to be done this way, and it sucks that it had to be done at all, really. But it did, and so I mean, I just want to say that as far as Brent Venables goes, you know what he did with Jeff Lebby there. Jeff Lebby leaving sucks, but I mean, he went on to greener pastures. He went back to the state of Mississippi, and he went to be a head coach, getting paid more money, putting food on the table for his family. I mean, you can't blame the guy for leaving. And it's incredibly difficult to replace a guy like Jeff Lebby. As much as we hated him last year because it's Jeff Lebby's fault, that wasn't the case. It really wasn't. It wasn't ever the case. Even though there were moments where you can blame that on Jeff Lebby, there were definitely moments where you can blame it on him. I think specifically the Kansas game, that felt like a Jeff Lebby. That felt like it was Jeff Lebby's fault because we should have been running the ball and wasting time. Instead, we didn't, and we didn't run it effectively. We weren't doing anything effective, and Kansas came back to beat us. Anyways, going on to this season was obvious that Jeff Lebby was a very good offensive coordinator, and it's tough to move on from that. What should have been implemented was, hey, what Jeff Lebby did was working. Go back and study what he did, and let's keep on doing that. But guys, that's all I got right now. Like I said, this was kind of a last minute. Let's jump on here and talk about Seth Littrell, what's going to happen moving forward. Like I said, we are going to be pumping out content this week to make up for it because we were lacking last week. Like I said, I was sick, traveling, all that kind of stuff. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Go, check out the merch store, all that stuff. Everything that we do is over on Soonerspotlight.com, Soonerspotlight.com. Go check it out over there for blogs and all kinds of stuff. We've got so much more over on the website, so go check us out. Follow me on social media, X, formerly known as Twitter. You can check me out over there. That's a great place to stay up to date on the podcast and so much more. We thank you all so much for tuning in. It's going to be a fun ride the rest of the season, but we'll see what ends up going on the rest of the season. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.